I found out someone had been storing their lawn equipment behind my shed without permission. When I confronted them, they rolled their eyes. It's just temporary. So I moved everything to the sidewalk and left a note, returning your temporary storage. The next day, I heard them yell, "Who did this?" I just walked by and waved. So this happened a few months ago, and I'm still shaking my head over how ridiculous it got. I live in a quiet neighborhood in Des Moines. Been here over 20 years. I know almost everyone on the street, and we all more or less mind our business and look out for each other. Nothing fancy here, just regular folks with small to medium-sized yards, some flower beds, a few fences. That kind of vibe. I've got a shed in my backyard, tucked into the back corner of the fence. It's not huge, but it fits all my stuff: mower, trimmer, shovels, and the old snowblower I still use when winter hits. Nothing exciting, just your average homeowner gear. I keep it locked and out of sight, because that's how I was raised: respect your tools, keep your space clean. Anyway, about 6 months ago, a new guy moved in 2 houses down. His name's Richard. Early 40s. Moved in alone, drives a newer Ford pickup. He seemed alright at first, quiet, mostly kept to himself. We said hi a few times when getting the mail. That's it. Then one weekend, I was out back early Saturday morning, planning to mow the lawn before the sun really started cooking. I walked around the shed to grab my mower, and something caught my eye, something that wasn't mine. 2 gas cans. A ratty old leaf blower. A weed whacker. And not just that. There were 2 lawnmowers, one upright and one just lying there on its side like someone gave up mid-task. All of it shoved behind my shed like it belonged there. I just stood there for a second, confused. Now let me say this isn't a shared space. My backyard is fenced in. The shed is inside my yard, next to the back fence. You would have to walk into my yard or come in through the side gate, which I usually keep locked, but clearly someone had been slipping in. So now I'm standing there, processing what the hell I'm looking at, and trying to think of any reason this stuff would be back here. It wasn't mine. I didn't lend anything to anyone, and it sure as hell didn't blow in with the wind. I walked back to the house, a little fired up, but still calm enough to try and handle it the adult way. I figured maybe someone put it there temporarily and forgot, or maybe there was some kind of misunderstanding. So I started going door to door, just a few houses nearby. I asked around, "Hey, did someone stash some lawn equipment behind my shed?" First 2 neighbors had no clue. The third one, Sharon, who lives next door to Richard, tilts her head and goes, "Oh yeah, I saw Richard hauling stuff back there last week. Thought maybe you guys had an agreement." I just stared at her. Nope, no agreement. Now I was annoyed. I walked over to Richard's place. Knocked once, waited. Knocked again. He finally opened the door, halfway. No smile, just kinda stared at me. I said, "Hey, quick question. Did you put a bunch of your lawn stuff behind my shed?" He didn't even flinch. Just kind of raised one eyebrow and said, "Yeah." "Why?" "It's just temporary," he said, and I swear he even rolled his eyes a little. "Didn't think it'd be a big deal. Your shed blocks it from the sun and rain, and I didn't have space in my garage right now." I stood there stunned for a second. "You didn't think to ask?" "I was gonna move it soon," he added, clearly annoyed that I was even bringing it up. "It's not hurting anything." "Richard," I said, trying hard not to snap, "you're storing your stuff on my property. That's not okay." He waved his hand like I was being dramatic. "It's just behind the shed. Not like I put it in your living room." I didn't even know what to say to that. I told him, I want it gone. Today. He just nodded and shut the door. No sorry. No real acknowledgement. Just closed the door in my face. I gave him the rest of the day. Nothing moved. I waited until the next afternoon. Still sitting there, untouched. At this point, it wasn't about the junk. It was the nerve. The complete disrespect. So the next morning, right after sunrise, about 6:30 a.m., I got up, had my coffee, and decided to return Richard's temporary storage. I hauled every single piece of equipment out from behind my shed. The 2 mowers, the weed whacker, the gas cans, the leaf blower. I lined them all up on the sidewalk in front of his house, right near the mailbox. And then I taped a piece of cardboard to the top mower that said, in big black Sharpie, "Returning your temporary storage. Please keep off my property." Simple. Clear. Done. I went about my day. At around 9 a.m., I was watering the plants out front when I heard it. Who did this? I looked up and saw Richard standing in his driveway, hands in the air, looking like someone just dropped a safe on his dog. He looked around, then down the sidewalk, then back at his house. His eyes locked on the note. He picked it up like it was covered in poison, then turned in a slow circle like he was trying to find who the culprit was. I just gave a little wave from across the yard and went back to watering my tomatoes. He stared at me for a long time. Then he marched back toward the pile, yelling, "You can't just dump this crap out here." "What the hell, man?" I shrugged and said, "Not my crap. Not my problem. Get it off my lawn next time." He stood there like he wanted to scream, but knew he couldn't say a damn thing without admitting he was wrong. He dragged the stuff into his garage eventually. Took him 3 trips, slamming stuff around, cursing under his breath. But he didn't say another word to me. About 3 days after the whole sidewalk return incident, I noticed something strange. I was taking out the trash late one evening, around 9:30 p.m., when I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. I stepped off the porch and looked toward the back fence. The motion light clicked on near the shed, and I swear I saw someone duck down. I stood there frozen, trash bag in hand. I walked slowly toward the back, heart starting to race. As I got closer, I saw it. The gate. The latch was open. I never leave it open. I looked behind the shed. Nothing there now. No equipment, no trash, no signs of anything, except the feeling in my gut that someone had just been there. I locked the gate and walked the perimeter. Checked the garage. Everything else was untouched. But that gate being open, it didn't sit right. Next morning, I installed a cheap outdoor camera above the back door and another facing the shed. Just in case. I told myself maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe the wind blew it open. Maybe I was just still keyed up from Richard's little stunt. But the camera didn't lie. 2 nights later, I got an alert at 2:17 a.m. The footage showed Richard walking into my backyard, through the side gate, with a damn flashlight. He walked up to the shed, stood there for a moment, looked around, and then walked off. Didn't even touch anything. Just stood there, like he was checking if something was still behind it. I was livid. I called the non-emergency police line and filed a report. The officer came by. I showed him the footage. He gave Richard a friendly warning, said if it happened again, they'd escalate. Richard never said a word to me about it. Never apologized. Never even acknowledged it happened. And here's where it got weird. 2 weeks after the incident, I started noticing things out of place. The hose, uncoiled when I hadn't used it. A shovel from my shed, leaning against the fence instead of inside where I kept it. A small bag of fertilizer, torn open near the garden bed like someone dumped it and left. It was subtle. Petty. Like he was trying to send a message without doing anything he could really get caught for. I didn't take the bait. I documented everything. Took pictures. Saved clips from the cameras. Logged dates and times. I wasn't going to play his stupid game. She leaned in close and said, "Hey, did you hear what happened to Gary's backyard? Gary lives on the other side of Richard. Has a big garden set up. Retired guy. Keeps to himself." "No," I said. "What happened?" "Someone poured bleach in his raised beds. Killed every plant." I blinked. "What?" "Yeah. Whole thing. Tomatoes, cucumbers, even the peppers. Everything's dead." He reported it, but there's no cameras on that side of his house. My blood ran cold. Sharon looked around and lowered her voice even more. "He thinks it was Richard. Said they had words last month over property lines." That's when it hit me. This guy was a serial jerk. Not just to me. This wasn't a one-off. This was a pattern. So I decided I wasn't just going to sit and wait for him to screw with my stuff again. I started documenting everything. Dates, times, footage, audio, when I could. I even got a second camera for the front of the house, just to cover all angles. Then I started talking. Quietly. A little word here, a little story there. Just to the neighbors I trusted. I told them what happened. What I caught on video. What Richard said. What the police told me. And every single one of them had a story. He took someone's trash bins once. Switched them on purpose so his were emptied first. He parked in front of someone's house during a party and blocked their driveway, then denied it when asked to move. One neighbor said he even backed into a mailbox and drove off. They saw it from the upstairs window but didn't get a plate. Piece of work. But the best part? I found out he wasn't renting. He bought that house. Which meant he wasn't going anywhere. Neither was I. So I planned something. Not revenge. Not yet. But something that would make him feel watched. Every morning, I made it a point to walk my yard. Every night, I checked every camera. Anytime he was outside, I made eye contact. Calm. Silent. Just long enough to make him uncomfortable. I let him know, without saying a word, that I was watching, and I wasn't afraid. About a month into the Cold War with Richard, things had gotten quiet. Too quiet. No more strange noises. No new lawn crap in my yard. My cameras hadn't picked up anything suspicious. It was almost eerie, like he was lying low. I started to think maybe the whole thing finally sank in and he was moving on. Then came the mail incident. I get my mail around 11 a.m. every day. Like clockwork. Always check it after my mid-morning walk. One Thursday, I opened the box and found a single envelope. No address. No stamp. Just a folded piece of paper inside. It read, "You think you're so clever. Watch your step. Everyone slips eventually." That's all. No name. Just sloppy handwriting in black pen. Sharp angles. Kinda aggressive. Like someone angry tried to write calmly but couldn't quite pull it off. I reported it. Cops said there wasn't much they could do without proof, but they noted it on the file. Same officer as last time, Officer Livingston. Real decent guy. He told me, if you ever catch him on camera again doing anything, let us know. I tightened things up. I installed a floodlight over the gate. Re-aimed all the cams. Added one inside the shed just in case. But that wasn't the twist. Here's the part that made my skin crawl. 2 nights later, I was reviewing footage. Just routine. Habit by now. I almost skipped it, honestly. At 3:02 a.m., the camera near the back fence picked up motion. It wasn't Richard. It was a woman. I don't know how she got in, maybe hopped the back fence from the other side. She moved fast, head down, hoodie up, carrying a small bag. She didn't take anything, didn't leave anything that I could see. But she walked right up to the back of my shed, paused, and just stood there. For 5 whole minutes. Then she left the same way she came in. I checked the shed in the morning. Everything inside was fine. But behind the shed, there was a single cigarette butt. Still smelled fresh. No footprints, ground was too dry. I couldn't make sense of it. So I asked around again. Started with Sharon. She looked spooked when I told her. You didn't hear? Hear what? That woman. I think she's Richard's ex. My stomach dropped. She said she saw her over once or twice before things went south. Last time she visited, there was shouting in the driveway, and then she peeled off in her car, tires squealing. Apparently Richard used to live with her before he moved here. Rumor was, it ended badly. I didn't even know what to say. Now I had some mystery woman creeping around my shed at 3 a.m., and no clear reason why. So I started digging. Quietly. I looked through public property records. Found Richard's full name. Then a simple Google search turned up a small claims case from 2 years ago. Filed by the same woman. It was over property damage. Guess what the listed item was? A shed. I couldn't make this stuff up if I tried. I printed everything. Stashed it in my Richard folder. But then came the next twist. That weekend, there was a knock on my door. Saturday morning. I opened it, and there was a younger guy, probably mid-30s, in work boots and a reflective vest. Hey, he said. You're the guy with the cameras, right? I nodded slowly. I'm doing utility checks. Water line stuff. There's a strange reading under the back alley. Thought maybe you'd seen something weird in the last week. I was suspicious, but he showed me a legit badge and credentials. His name was Eli, worked for the city. We walked around back, and I showed him the area. We got to talking. He looked down at the ground behind the shed and frowned. This spot here. This looks fresh. I followed his gaze. He was pointing at a patch of dirt, about a square foot in size, that did look looser than the rest. Like someone had dug, then covered it back up. You didn't do that? Nope, I said. He raised an eyebrow. You want me to dig it out? I've got tools in the truck. Won't take a minute. I hesitated. Something about this felt off, but curiosity got the best of me. 5 minutes later, he came back and started digging. About 6 inches down, we hit something solid. Plastic. He pulled it out slowly. It was a locked plastic container. Black. Dirty. Tightly shut. No markings. Eli looked at me and said, You sure you don't want to call the cops now? Eli, the city worker, and me, standing in my backyard, holding a dirty, locked plastic container we just dug up from behind my shed. He handed it to me. I don't know what's in there, but this ain't right. We didn't try to open it ourselves. I called Officer Livingston again. Told him everything. The camera footage, the strange woman, the warning note, and now this. He showed up within 20 minutes, and when I gave him the box, he opened it right there on the tailgate of his cruiser. Inside were several clear Ziploc bags, each full of cash. Stacks of $20 bills. Some hundreds. Not old bills either. Crisp, clean. There had to be at least $15,000 in there, probably more. My stomach dropped. Livingston looked up at me, stunned. Did you know about this? I just shook my head. First time I've ever seen it. You saw the camera footage. Someone else put it there. He nodded, then said, You did the right thing. This is serious. This could be connected to something big. They took the container in as evidence. For 2 days, I didn't hear anything. Then Livingston came back. This time with a detective. Turns out, the money had fingerprints. And guess whose prints were all over it? Richard. But it got better. Remember that woman who showed up at 3 a.m.? Turns out she'd filed a restraining order against Richard last year. They were involved in some shady stuff, cash business, possibly unlicensed landscaping gigs. When they split, she claimed he had money from her during the fallout. Police believed Richard had buried some of that cash on my property so he could keep it off the books. Out of sight. Out of reach. And what did I do? I handed it to the police with full documentation, footage, dates, times, even witness statements from Sharon and Eli. It was the perfect storm. The cops got a warrant. 2 days later, they searched Richard's house. They found more hidden cash and paperwork tying him to other shady deals, stuff involving unpaid taxes, stolen tools, even a forged invoice scam with some retired folks who'd hired him for yard work. They arrested him. The whole street watched as he got cuffed and taken away. Word spread fast. It was like a block party but silent, just neighbors watching from porches, arms crossed, sipping coffee. And me? I stood in my driveway. I didn't say a word, just waved. Same way I had when I returned his temporary storage to the sidewalk. Poetic. After he was gone, I fixed up the side gate, added another camera just for good measure, and planted a row of thorny rose bushes behind the shed. No one sneaking back there again. Sharon brought me a pie. Gary gave me a thumbs up. Eli, he stopped by the next week and said, Glad I knocked. I kept all the footage, copies of the reports, and even framed the note that said, Watch your step. It's on the wall in my garage now, right above the mower. A reminder, don't mess with the quiet neighbor. Sometimes we're just waiting. and watching and ready.